Steve Townsend.
And we're working another video on videos that'll help new and aspiring whip makers maybe, and just some things that basically, ultimately all these topics are, we just kind of thought, what are some of the things we wish we would have known, or things we did learn, or things we put together in the beginning that we knew would help us out, or things that just we thought would be better. So a lot of these topics aren't really for us, our benefit at all, or to help us out. You know, we're just kind of sharing some of these, so hopefully you guys can, you know, have a better shot at a first beginning, you know, or help get you somewhere better quicker.
At least know what to be in store for,
You know.
from certain points of view.
And this one I was thinking we're going to put a couple things together, but I thought it'd be good to talk about you want to get a logo, or trying to find your brand or your own whip shop logo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a huge one, and I feel, you know, like a lot of people online, just, you know, you look at these people that seem to be succeeding as whip makers, and you know, you can just see one thing, and definitely the first thing you notice is, oh, they got a logo and they got a good name. And you know, and when it comes to online shopping, I would say that that's the cornerstone of a whip shop. You at least got to have a logo and a name, because they gotta get a hold of you. Get on your website or webpage. You can't just say whips, more whips. That might be brilliant.
Right.
AAA, whips, and more whips might be the best marketing strategy ever.
You never know.
But you know, it's a big one, and I've tried to help a lot of different people with this, because I've got a lot of gifts, and they're both good and bad, gifts and curses. But one thing I'm always good at is coming up with terms, would you say, and coming up with names, and helping people figure their stuff out, like I did. Like here's where I went with it, and here's help you with it. But I've helped a lot of people with that. And when it comes to finding a good logo or name, you know, you can do whatever you want, you know. But we just want to kind of talk about, first off, just what made you come up with, or what was your idea behind when you decided to come up with your name and or logo? So it's not just what you call yourself, but also that too.
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean, with me, I like, well, for one thing, you know, you're dealing with whips, and primarily what I make are bull whips. I mean, I got some stock whips on my page, and snake whips and stuff like that. But to me, I just, what does a bull whip conjure up image-wise? And it's the Old West, you know, so I knew I wanted a logo that kind of fit into that kind of that imagery. And every Western I've ever loved, which is a lot, you know, you've always got the scene in the saloon where they're in a saloon, and it's just a nice little saloon, and maybe they got their name painted on the window or in wood up above the whatever. I just always wanted a logo that reflected that kind of imagery to me. You know, just it's like you know, it's got some of the red pinstriping on it, and the name, the font that the name is in like almost looks like the printing of the English language on a dollar bill.
You know, you want like a rustic look.
Yeah.
His first idea was like a rustic.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, the name is Townsend Handcrafted Whips, and there again, handcrafted to me was, I knew I wanted that in there somewhere, you know. But now there's Handcrafted Whips by Louis, I think, or Victor Sansucci, is who I'm thinking of.
Sansucci or Sansucci, Solse,
yeah,
something like that, yeah.
But yeah, so I couldn't, you know, Handcrafted Whips, or I can't think of what his name was. I really liked it. But,
I think it's Victor Sansucci.
Yeah, but so yeah, I knew I wanted handcrafted in there, so I just went with handcrafted whips, because that's, you know, the bulk of what I make. So and then the logo, I just, you know, we went back and forth a couple times getting this image and that image, and I wanted some pinstriping, and it turned out just the way I wanted it. It looks great.
Are you talking about the black with the crazy one we came up with, or the original? Did that have pinstriping in the original wood format?
No, not the wooden.
You're talking about the final one, like
the final, yeah, with the red.
like the one where I combined our logo and we had that cool little pinstriping with the red. Oh,
right.
Yeah, his first thing was he was like, I just want to get it like about an actual shop in the West. Like you just walk by and see a wood sign that would be swinging that would just say Townsend Handcrafted Whips. Like he just wanted it to be and that was his first basic logo idea. So I mean, that was pretty slick. So I mean, we were trying to get a logo and have a background to make it look like it was written on wood and was engraved. And then, you know, but here's the thing too, like if you get a logo from someone, you know, you can get different files, which are good. Like you can just get a picture, but it's good to have AI files or different files like that, where you can now take that format and hand it to anyone that makes shirts or posters or media or anything, and they can take that AI and now change it. But without that AI, you can't really change a picture without them reinventing the wheel. It's like reverse forensics. Take a picture and then re-get all images. But it's always good to get an AI for that reason, because with that AI, it would be like I'd send it back to the girl that I love that does my stuff, and I'd be like, oh, I'll make it pop, or do this, or let's do the same look, because now she's got the hard format, so she's like, oh, I'll just change these colors or add this, because she doesn't have to reinvent the original logo. Mm-hmm. Like, it's always good to have those AI files for stuff like that. Yeah. I know mine. I don't know if you guys know anything about my history on it, but I kind of knew after I worked with Steve, and I was a few whips deep, and by the third whip I just used the blade only, and me, him, and Casey were talking one morning, and we were just talking about whip names. I don't remember why I started, whether I was talking about I want a whip name for myself, or I'm thinking about it. Not that I was looking for ideas. I remember we had this conversation, and then we also, one thing I was always talking to him about is, for me to get good at martial arts, I had to have good training partners. You got to have a good training partner. I mean, you need people that are better at you at fighting, and then you need training partners, and then you need, people that aren't as good as you. You kind of need the gambit anything to help see higher levels and deal with what you got. But it was important to have a training partner, especially back then when no one was doing what we were working at. So we both saw what we wanted. It was very beneficial, because then I'd go out and figure out, and he'd go back and figure out his own thing. So like when I was doing, I don't even know name of martial art. While I tried a judo place out, he was doing Aikido. While I was doing BJJ, he was doing boxing academies. When I was doing kickbox, we would go out and train in this and come back and share. And it's like we got to know things a lot better, a lot quicker. We got to develop this stuff. We were working back and grow. And so I was like, that's one thing that doesn't happen whips. I was thinking every whip maker is so far apart. And it was just fortunate that God put me and Steve less than an hour, really about an hour away by car, like an hour away. Mm-hmm. Just worked out magically. And then Nick's only 3 hours north of us, but it got us that close. And so Casey was far away, but I was always thinking about like, this is a perfect opportunity for me and Steve, whether he knew I was thinking that at the time or not. But I'm like, this is brilliant. We're working together. And, it'll be two people working the same goal. We both want the same basic idea. We both want that Joe Strain-esque type feel in our whips or whatever. And so it allowed us to both, as we tackled, share what we're learning. And two people can read 2 books instead of one. It just helps. So I was like, that's one thing the whip world didn't have, was whip makers that worked so well together and could actually bounce off. I know it happens. They do, like, there are different people that get in chat. But we had a golden opportunity, being that we can physically just, hey man, come on over and touch each other. And that didn't happen. There wasn't that out there. And so I was always thinking about that too, that, man, it shouldn't be I wanted a brand or a logo to me that wasn't after my name. Like, I can't stand the way my name sounds. I don't know if that's common in every human being, but Blake Bruning, I just cannot stand that tag. And like, I never to me thought it sounded good to say Bruning whips or Blake Bruning. So somebody saying, oh, it's a Bruning. To me, it's probably just because it's my name. But like, every other name sounded regal. It's a Nolan. It's a Del Carpio. It's a Townsend. Sounds like old timey crafting guy. It's a Strain. It's a Morgan. It's you name it. It's a Thorndike. I mean, it's a Winrich. Like, to me, everyone's names, it's a Fox. Every of these names sounded better. And I'm just like, I don't even want my name in it. And so I was always, we were talking on a group chat or something. I was like, we're talking about what would be a name for 3 whip makers together. And Steve said, trifecta. And I'm like, that's good, but I got one better. And just like, it came in like Trinity. And Trinity came to me for a lot of reasons. It wasn't just 3 whip makers were together. That's kind of what's the word, double entendre? There's other meanings to it. Like, of course, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and things like that. But I just thought that's perfect. That's a perfect name. So for me, I wanted it to reflect that relationship and what that relationship has got me where I was making whips. And I wanted that branding to reflect me best I can. And then as far as Whipco, anyone can call themselves a whip company. There are even companies just called whip companies 100 years ago because their whips around it's the whip company, But Joe always used Whipco. And like a few people did that, wasn't it? Like, what was Terry Jacka's, the Australian Whipco? And I think that was his. But a lot of people use Whipco, and I know it didn't mean anything. Anybody can use Whip Company. But I talked to Joe and said, hey, I know this is silly, but I'm like, I want to call myself Trinity and then Whipco, and Whipco in honor of you because of all your help and all me striving to understand it. And I'm like, you know, that'd be okay. And I'm like, if you don't say it's okay, that's right. I'll find something else. But the only you know, I just lean on saying it. I know it's silly, but it felt to me like that's what my Whipco meant. I wanted it to be, because it's from Northern Whipco, it's going to be Trinity Whipco. It's And he said, he just laughed kind of, he said, no problem. But like at that moment, I wanted to use Whipco, because I'm just like, to me, that was the only point for me wanting to use Whipco, was to show, you know, a little bit of repetitive, you know, that it's giving thanks to Joe. So every time you get a Trinity Whipco, it's like me giving thanks to Joe, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't really for what Joe helped do to me. You know, I wouldn't be here if Steve wasn't here, first off, but, you know, that too. But, you know, then coming up with logos, you know, so coming up with names, good one. Having a name, like, here's what I like, having a name that was a company name and not a person's name, became very beneficial, because if you go to buy something called, like if you buy a Midwest whip and not a Paul Nolan whip. Now, Paul Nolan is Midwest whips, but there's more than Paul Nolan through the years that helps work for him. So you're getting a Midwest whip. If you go to Trinity Whipco, you're getting a Trinity Whipco whip. I mean, Steve works on them, I work on them. We're looking at futures for other people to help. But like the nice idea why I like the Trinity Whipco was it's not a person's name. Because if I said Blake Brenning whip and I had someone help me out, you're like, well, it's not a Blake Brenning whip, because it's a Blake Brenning, you know, Blake Brenning maybe didn't do all of it. But Tom Hill was like that back then. You got to realize he's a big whip company. Tom Hill, like Terry Jackus was his last apprentice. He had a couple sons that did it. He would make and prep stuff and throw to his sons and Terry Jackus while they're apprenticing, and they just braid them up. So David Morgan would get a lot of these whips from Australia that he'd sell out, but they were from Tom Hill and the crew. And that was a whip company. Once again, he would be making stuff and tossing, and people complete it, because it's a whip company. It's not a whip maker. It's a little different way things are done. We're both trying to make the same model Ferrari out and get it out there. We all do a different part or do whatever that makes our company work better, and my hands are too tired for this. I do all the prepping. You know, Tom Hill's done enough braiding in his life. He's like, I'm just going to prep and toss. So sometimes it was hard to tell whether the whip was made by Terry or Tom or whoever, because it's might have been Tom's kit, but Terry braided it. You know, you just never know on some of these stack whips and stuff back in the day.
Right.
But like that's kind of the nice of a whip company. You know, no one's equivalent about it. They like make it. You know, like even because when David Morgan near retirement, when he quit, was it 2000? Like was it around 2000 he quit? And I know there's a big debate that, well, he didn't make all the whips up to 2000. Just because you know it was made before 2000, what proof do you have David make it? And some people would that'd come up a topic with gearheads sometimes. And I'm like, well, you know, sometimes people would go in there and hopefully have him make it and watch them. And they pay for it and see it happen, you know. But, you know, it's like, well, that's just the way it is. David Morgan is a company, and they make whips, you know, and David's got to retire, you know. I mean, so what does that do? Kill the business? You know, it's a company. You know, and you know, like Northern Whip Co., it could be Joe Strain Co., because he's got a son named Joe Jr. that's picking up the mantle, and so's Andrew. So I mean, you know, things happen. People don't even think that this is going to be a generational thing in my life. I mean, I got girls, I doubt they're going to do it, but you know, it can be a generation thing. So you know, I like the idea of a company name for that reason. Not that I planned it from the beginning; it just kind of came out like that. But that's how I came up with that. And, you know, as far as logos. You know, I always envisioned when I had my martial arts academy, I was coming up with my own logo with Under Victory, martial arts through Dion in Chicago. And so I visualized, like, you know how they have an NBA, they'll have little spots, it'll be red, white, and blue, but in the white, it's like a guy playing basketball, or if it's football, it's a guy like this, you know. And I thought I wanted that, but I wanted that to be a cross in the middle, red and white, blue, and I wanted that, you know, to have a black belt around the cross. I'm like, that's what I want for my logo. I want a cross in the middle of a classic sports shield, and then that. And then when I made whips, I'm like, you know, I got the logo done and I love it. I'm like, I'm going to change the colors and just put a whip around the cross of a black belt. And, you know, so it was kind of already there for me before I joined. It was just like a no-brainer. I really love the idea of that one.
Right.
But, you know, when coming up for names or logos, definitely, you got any advice for people? I've done this more than you, but you got any advice on any quick tips on trying to find their identity through a logo, come up with something?
Well, not really tips on how to try to find your identity, other than just try to make it an extension of who you are and what you make, and understand that what you're making and what you're sending out is representative of you as a craftsman. So I would just say, you know, in my mind, pick something you like and go with it, so you're not changing, you know, because you found something better a few years into business. You know, not that that's something you can't recover from, because, you know, people do it all the time, I'm sure. But it seems like a lot of work to have to try to rebuild a new brand. So I would say,
Another reason to do things right the first time. Right?
I mean, yeah,
Make sure.
Do it right out of the gate. Pick something you like, something that you feel like is representative of you. And like, no, I've got my logo and my name, Townsend Handcrafted Whips. Now, I can keep that name, keep that business, and alter the logo from time to time. Make little changes to it. That's different. That's something.
That's marketing.
Yeah,
that's just
that's just making something old look new. You know,
what's the term for it? I don't know. Rebranding.
Yeah,
is it called rebranding or
I don't know.
no? New brand. Yeah, there's a term for it, but they do it all the time. I mean, Nike swoosh wasn't just a blank swoosh. They started having just do it behind it or other things. I mean, you're just rebranding the brand, or I don't know what it's called, rebranding it,
but yeah, I would say as far as your name goes, make sure you pick something that's good. Now, see, I have a logo, the speed of sound in the palm of your hand, and I'm not real sure if I like that, but that's what I've gone with, and it's.
I like it. It's catchy. It's catchy,
and it is in the palm of your hand. Just so you know.
Speed of sound in the palm of your hand. You know,
Right.
make it happen.
It's kind of gimmicky, but you know, we'll go with
You,
it.
you don't need logos or models. I mean, just, you know, it's just, they used to talk about that, yeah. But yeah, it's fun. You know, I always thought it'd be good to have a good logo or model, because I'm like, most businesses have business statements. Like, what's Nike? Just do it. You know, I mean, there's little things that kind of shape the manifest of a company. So, you know, I thought, well, it's good to have a little line like that, or a little mission statement, or a little fun thing that helps. So, you know, that's why mine was Trinity Whip Company. You know, I'm like battling whip fever daily. I think that's what, yeah, and I said that unfortunately there's no cure for whip fever or something like that. There's no cure, only treatment, more whips. And I just thought that was funny.
That's it.
Because, you know, it's just, man, you know, it becomes addictive. It's probably the biggest, it's a more expensive crack habit than real crack. I'll tell you that. It can become one. If you don't make them, you buy them. Even make them is expensive. But, you know, one thing I'd recommend is, some things to look at when you're thinking of a brand or brand logo, same thing. You know, it's kind of hard to separate those because sometimes you do both. But when you're coming up for an identity, it's always good to do something more personable than I would say it is something you just think sounds trendy or flashy. I mean, that can work. But, you know, there's a lot of brands I've really loved through the years for different reasons. And one that always comes back to me is recently is 808 Whips. He's in Hawaii, and I say this a lot, but the guy in Hawaii who was 808, Keanu is great. Because the 808 made me wonder why 808. I'm like, everybody is like, you know, I don't have different names. I'll make up some random words like Black Ridge, Mountain, Falconry Leather, or, you know, people just use some different stuff, Mountains, Western, you know, and they have all this whip company, whip shop, you name it. But I was like, 808, like, seriously, that alone made me say there's got to be a story behind 808. Like, is your goal to make 808 whips and quit? Like, I was thinking about, like, is it that there's somehow everything has to do an 8 or an 8 on a whip? I mean, like, you know, and he's like, oh, well, and I finally talked to him, he's like, well, I'm in Hawaii. And he says, I'm in the 808 district. You know, just like, you know, usually, you know, gangs talk about where they're from, like 40 and 9 means that they live in that intersection of 40 and 9. It's just so, you know, 808's the district. And I'm like, well, so that was just where he was at. So not only labeled where he was, but it just kind of, to them, it's like, that's my tribal code. Like, I'm an 808, what that means. So I'm like, that was a great idea for branding. It made me wonder where he got the name, you know. I'm not that you need catchy things, and not that I think he did to be gimmicky, but I'm like, because it was so real and natural and there's a real story behind it, it just made me want to know the story, you know. And, you know, not that you need to do that stuff, but I've heard some crazy names through the years. Side note, and you know, like, there's a market out there where they want whips that aren't Indiana Jones like, and Jones like, and I've had people come up with some phrases, and I don't want to say them, but they're just about as cheap and cheesy as you know, good butt slapping, you know, like that's the name of the whip company or something. And I'm just like, okay, and it wasn't quite that, but I've had a few things to see now. I mean, I've talked to people, I'm like, well, that's great, but right now you just eliminated half your market, or maybe more. I'm like, first of all, I'm like, well, it's great, but now that definitely, as a marketing, it's not bad, because you definitely pointed out what market he was for, right? Like, I mean, it does, but it also makes anyone else that might want to whip from you not even want to check it, because they may figure that's the only type of whips you make, etc. So I'm like, well, first of all, you know, let's look at it like that. And second of all, when you send a whip to anyone, I always thought you should have some, you should be discreet. And so you got to realize, when I write Trinity Whip, and this is stupid, but when I write Trinity Whip Co. on my box to send out, I've had to have some customers tell me, please don't put Trinity Whip Co. on it. Because the fact that it says whip and they live in buildings, so they have to come down and deal with the concierge or whoever's working there, they're always like, you're getting a whip. And even though it might be an Indiana Jones whip, they don't have to deal with everyone knowing they're getting a whip, and then they start having jokes in the building because they live in New York or wherever they're at.
Because the natural assumption is typically kink and fetish.
You know, and even the kink and fetish don't, I think, do like only 90% of it, like only 5% of that crowd even do it the way everyone thinks they do it when they're crazy. Not everyone probably even do it like that. It's like a small majority that are on 50 Shades of Grey with crazy $1 million contracts and insanity. I mean, there's some stuff that out there, but I mean, it's like, it's not really what you think, you know. But I've had it now. So when you get a box from me now, it just says T.W.C. TWC, Trinity Whipco. So no one understands those initials.
Could be the Weather Channel.
The way, it's a good one. It could be. I wish it was going to go on that stick.
The wine company. The wine company. It's from the wine company, guy.
The war chariots.
I mean, you could
It could be,
something fairly quickly to discreetly identify TWC. I mean, come on. See, I can't really do that. All my packages are going to say THC, you know, THCW, and it's going to. Now people think you're getting some medicine for your glaucoma or something, you know.
I remember the day that happened. It was his years after he already had it.
Right.
And then he just started thinking, he was like, you know, the academic, he's like, what's mine? He's like, THC.
I did not do that on purpose. I was not going after a certain market. I really wasn't.
THC whips.
A market with that. Yeah, right?
Oh, gosh.
Guilty.
But, oh, that's right.
I'm stuck with that.
but it is good, and I want to share another insight. Oh wow, another insight. So, like maybe you have a name that will also help you figure out, models or how you want to do pics. We'll make another video in a minute about pictures and that, but your name will affect this. Like, say your name was the Chess Maker, Whip Maker. It's about chess theme. Well, you know, it's like, dude, no brainer. If you love chess and whips, and somehow you had a name that worked with chess and whips, dude, you take every picture on a chessboard. You know, you could have a giant chessboard with nice pieces and have it in the middle. That's actually not a bad idea, to tell you the truth. You have a nice little chess, all these different chessboards. So I mean, and then you name your series like, this is the bishop, this is the rook, this is the French English Open, you know, or whatever. I mean, you can use chess terms, the Queen's Gambit. Like right now, this is why, like I said, I have a lot of people out because I can just come up with names. But I'm like, if you just took that concept now, like the chessites, and then but it's like you could use that. That would now help maybe shape the way you want to do everything else. So sometimes even finding a name that's even personal to you can even help you understand series or models or model names or gimmicks or, you know, how you do it. I mean, you want to be called the Desert Pony Whips, and then you live in Greenland where there's nothing but ice, and so there's not. I mean, it'd be nice to have some sand. I mean, if you went by the name Desert, you might want to see some sand. I'm not saying you have to. Or you went by the Appalachian Mountains or the Rocky Mountain Whips or something, and you know, it'd be nice to maybe have a picture of a mountain in the background, or you know, I mean, it'd just be nice to somehow like a branch from a tree from the mountain. I mean, it's like it's good to do that stuff. Maybe not. No, not saying that. I'm just saying, you know, that can also affect things like that. You know, but getting a brand, getting a logo, you know, you don't need it to make whips. And we'll talk about another video about whip pics about that too. Just about like let the pictures, let your work speak for itself. You don't really got to say nothing about it really. But you know, if you are getting into this and you've made 5 or 10 whips, think about a logo if you haven't. You don't need to jump on it though. The important thing is to, I would say, make a product that you think is about on par with, you know, good starting whip makers so you can get a run for it. But you know, think about it. You got time. Think of something personal or not. Think of something that just sticks out to you. But then don't just go with it. Think about it more. You know, and you know. But I really think always making something personal is a little bit better. I mean, there's tons of names. I could probably make up 10 random names right now, and I bet someone's used them. There's only so many words with whip and leather and handcrafted and right. You know, by hand. You name it that you might even add. Whip shop. Whip Palace, Whip Kingdom, I mean, whatever. I mean, you know, there's only so much, you know, and it can't be just as easy as saying Townsend Whips, Nick's Whip Shop, Blake Whips. Right. You know, it's that easy too. Don't get me wrong. Some people have a hard time. If you have a hard time with a name, it don't matter. You just use your name, and it can actually be very beneficial to use your name. Like, you know, like John Carpenter's Halloween. He made sure it was called John Carpenter's Halloween because then no one could say Halloween without saying John Carpenter, instant producer success or director success. So it doesn't hurt to be like, oh, that is a Townsend. You know, that is a Morgan. That is, you know, that's a Joe Strain or whatever. Like, it's good to have whip shop named after you too. It's like it can help too. So there's nothing wrong with that, Matt. I just want to clarify. I'm not saying anything wrong with that shit. Just saying that, you know, whatever it is, nothing's more personal in your name, I guess. But it should be, it should be something I think is personal.
Well, I mean, if you're willing to back a product with your name, that says something too.
Yeah, I would say that too, because, you know, if I called myself flip side whips, well, I can go under and no one will know that I'm now upside whips, and then when I rip everyone off, be downside whips, and come back around side whips. Or I mean, you know, so that is a good point. You know, having your name to it does give it a sort of how would you call it? Strong rooting, showing that you got character. You're putting your name on the line with these products. I mean, there's that side of just being branded with your name.
Right.
Very good point. Good point. Well, hope you had fun. We got some more videos we'll shoot here in a few minutes. And, you know, I'll tell you what, if you guys got any comments to share that hopefully are in a good nature, please do. I'd love to hear from you guys. Anything you want.
Or videos you might want to see us do.
That's it. Topics you might want us to cover. You know, we're only as good as we are. We got a decent reputation. We've got a decent business, an establishment in the business, and you know, the whole reason I want to do these is, in a way, is just not even help you with actual whip making, but what the stuff you have to go through to become a business, or the stuff dealing with it that has nothing to do with what you think, which is just cutting, stretching, prepping, and braiding. Mm-hmm. That, you know. I think a lot of these would never come to you if you didn't have someone explain it to you. You know, through the years we picked up a lot of these, or have come to these, or people have shared with us like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that yet, or that's good, you're right, I got to think about it. And I don't know where one ends and one begins, because it's been, you know, a long road with a lot of fast, you know, high octane stuff. But some of it I can remember, some of it I can't. But we just thought these would be helpful. So if they're helpful, just say, yeah, it was helpful, or anything. You know, I mean, any comment, you can just put emojis. I'm okay with emojis.
Right.
I haven't seen it. No one's commented on any of these. The shocking thing is, I haven't seen a single comment in the series. We put 4 of them, they've been watched. So I'm like, wow. Maybe they just click on and shut off. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, drop me an emoji. If you drop me an emoji, any emoji, it lets me know you watched one to the end. Well, God bless you. Keep braiding. And, you know, thanks for your time.
We'll see you next time.